What's up, Gromies? Welcome to AROYA Office Hours, episode 140, your source for free cannabis cultivation education. I'm your host, Cian, here with our Director of Applied Technology, Jason Van Leuven. We've got a special guest on the show with us today, Jonah Carrington, Director of Operations for Cookies Humboldt and the person behind the famed Cookies University. When I say operations, we're talking about someone who oversees one of the most comprehensive cannabis facilities in the world, as well as is the hub of genetics for that cannabis company nationwide. We are really excited to talk to Jonah today. He's got a whole bunch of different perspectives to share with people, and it's one of the most diverse facilities that we've heard of that Jonah runs. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to ask Jonah some fun questions we don't normally get to ask someone like him. Jonah, for the start here, would it be all right if we just had you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, your introduction to the cannabis industry, and how Cookies came to be what it is today?
For sure. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm Jonah, Director of Genetics and R&D for Cookies. Recently changed my job title, but also kind of GM of our facilities at One Log up in Southern Humboldt. So I got into this industry pretty much been in my whole life. I grew up in Santa Cruz, kind of around the cannabis business. A lot of people I knew were growers in the Santa Cruz Mountains, a lot of indoor growers. I always grew weed, always had my kind of small indoor, but it was always just kind of more of a hobby than anything that I could make a little money. Just really loved doing it. My main source of income was construction. I've done construction most of my life, so I have a pretty diverse set of skills on that and building. Started coming up to Humboldt, 2014-ish. Some people I knew were buying farms up here, and I would just really enjoy coming up and hanging out with my buddies and working on the farm, and that's just kind of how it all started. And some friends of mine, in anticipation of rec passing, saw this property that was coming up for sale, which is essentially the first commercial property, first commercially zoned property when you cross the Mendocino-Humboldt County line, which is One Log. At that point, it was really just a cafe, gift shop, roadside stop. The One Log house. Why it's called One Log? Girls it's such a weird name. It's a tiny house that is carved out of a giant redwood tree. So, that's what the One Log is, and it's on a trailer. And people, tour groups would stop here when they're going up to see the redwoods and take pictures inside the One Log house, and that's what the property was. But my friends had a vision for kind of a one-stop shop at the entrance to Humboldt County. This was when the industry up here was absolutely booming. And so it was going to be genetics, cultivation, manufacturing, distro, packaging, just everything. Then also retail space, full consumption permits and events permits. It's a pretty big property. So we were, plan was to throw, cannabis events and things like that. So they had this whole great vision of, the cannabis tourism industry, all these different things. And it's such a beautiful, pristine property that's right on the river. So it's just, I saw it and I was just like, oh man, I just want to be a part of this. It sounds like so much fun. And I was, kind of looking for a change, was kind of on the mid 30s. You kind of hit that point where it's like, okay, do I, it might be the last chance I have to make a big dramatic change in my career. So they needed, they had bought the property. They had got funding to build out all the operations. They had got all the licenses, or at least the process going for licenses. And they needed someone to come in and build it who had kind of my specific skill set. So they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to come up full time. And I took the job and moved up here. And it was supposed to, it was supposed to only be a couple years, but, here I am, 8 years later, still here, and don't regret it for a second. And, kind of through all that, obviously, and, when you're in kind of full startup mode, at any business, there's never enough money. Everybody has to do a lot of different jobs. You have to wear a lot of different hats. So kind of through that, I ended up, also, kind of being the project manager for all the construction, and then also managing the farms and the cultivation licenses. So I kind of got to do a little bit of both. So I got to build out operations and while I was managing cultivation, and so learned a lot about growing, outdoor organic growing, kind of the hill farm, the whole mentality. I'd only really grown indoor before that, and so it was a whole new thing for me. It was really interesting. Learned how to do a lot with a little. A lot of my staff were super new to it as well. So I would have to oftentimes be learning something myself while I was teaching other people how to do it, which is a certain different level of anxiety. But you just kind of figure it out as you go. And we had some pretty good success, but after the first year, we decided to consolidate everything in one log. We were getting all this built. So, what I would kind of do is I would manage the farms in the summer and then manage the construction in the winter. And that was one thing that I really noticed when I moved up here is a lot of people took the winter off. And I was like, that's not really an option. So it can be pretty brutal here in the winter. And so we'd be doing these big major construction projects where it just wouldn't stop raining for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. So, had to toughen up a little bit and got it done, and so, one log was kind of a process of, one thing coming online at a time. First we were getting our nursery up and running and the dispensary retail space up and running. And then it was getting the mixed light cultivation facility built. And then it was our manufacturing, packaging, distro facility. And then after that was our newest facility, which is the R&D facility, which is where I spend all my time now. Now that the construction's done, I just get to play with the plants all day.
That'd be a great spot to spend time too.
Yeah. Sorry, I might have steered off. Where was I? Yeah. So kind of in the early days, we had all these great, this great vision for the property. The industry didn't exactly do its part as planned. And so we had to pivot a lot. Luckily this was around the time, originally we were just kind of cultivating for cookies and, we were producing really good product. And, I was one of the, growing a lot of the early cookies genetics, and then selling it back to them, really impressed them with what we were doing. And, cookies was this kind of crazy, hybrid, fashion brand, weed company, obviously Burners music and all that. So it was like it was this phenomenon with no real structure yet. And so they really needed a place where they could keep all of their genetics safe. We had proven that we were trustworthy. We'd proven that we knew what we were doing, that we weren't gonna mess any of their stuff up. We weren't gonna give it a hop. We weren't gonna, send it out infected with bugs. We just right off the bat had a really good track record. And so the call was made to, rather than operating our nursery as a traditional nursery selling clones, which was the original business model, we decided to shift gears and essentially just become a genetic hub for cookies, a place that we could just keep their genetics alive and healthy and safe. And then that's kind of what allowed them to be able to expand as dramatically as they could, because they could rely on that one thing, which, cookies is all these different things, but at the end of the day, it is a genetics company, and that's Cookies IP as it strains.
One of the really cool things I think that you've done a great job at is optimizing what those genetics potential is as well. So, you and I've worked quite a bit together over the last, 2.5, 3 years, something like that. And the distance you've come as far as really like making each strain grow to the best of its ability. It's no wonder why you guys are the hub for that genetics growth.
I appreciate that, man. It's been a long road to get here, and it's genetics are hard, and having all of this in one place has been so crucial to be able to test those genetics under pretty much every different environment, every different condition. There's so many different levers I can pull on this property, especially on the genetics side. It's really what has made it possible, because genetics is such a tightrope walk. It's like knowing how it's going to perform for everybody, regardless of how they're running it, is a crucial part of being able to get it to people, and also being able to get them to trust to be able to ramp it up immediately and go straight into production with something sight unseen. That's a big leap of faith for a grower. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Jason. I take a lot of pride in that.
It's so many places that we work with as well. Their job is a little bit more pinpointed, right? They're either indoor with flower and a little bit of distillate, and then you have greenhouses that you run in the wintertime with the hydronic, which is super cool. Definitely not an easy environment to operate a greenhouse especially in the wintertime. And then you've got your outdoor as well. And, most importantly, those genetics testing, the R&D and nursery that you've been running for so long there. So I guess kind of a hard question, but, when it comes down to it, how do you manage all of the different routes of that? You're trying to get genetics that are optimized for not one specific growth type, but pretty much what's the whole gamut.
It's there's a lot of facets to it. Obviously we have a lot of knowledge and experience, and hindsight, made a lot of mistakes over the years, have corrected those mistakes, learned what to look for. But the most important thing is just having really good people that you can rely on. Like you said, there's so many different things going on. I can't look at all of it at the same time. And so, my team, my management staff, I really believe is second to none. We have a climate at one log, and this wasn't necessarily the way it was supposed to be. It was just kind of by necessity. Tried going out and looking for the most qualified people to move into some of these management positions here, and it would usually not work out well. I learned very early on that if I promote from within, find people on my staff who just have that enthusiasm, have that that drive, that work ethic, that attention to detail, that just like give a shit factor that some people have and some people don't. You get so much more bang for your buck, and the fact that we were cookies, that allowed me to get people here that were probably overqualified for the position, and they would take a low level position just to get their foot in the door, and they just got it. And and there's always been a mentality that if I see you putting in the extra effort and something, we're constantly adding new parts of the equation. Sometimes people leave, sometimes people move up. There's always opportunities opening up, and people know when they work here that if you hold up your end of the bargain, I'm gonna make sure that you're in a good place when that opportunity does open up. So that's been the real game changer over the last 5 years or so, is getting really, really good people. And the majority of my management staff have been here a long time. When I stepped in to run the R&D facility, which 2 years ago, when we got that up and running, 2.5 years ago when we got that up and running, I just took all the individual department managers and basically said, hey, I'm not going to be checking in with you every day. I'm going to be working with the plants every day. I'm moving over to this position, but I still, expect there to be a constant dialogue, and so they all know, they're hitters, they're problem solvers, but they know that, I'm just across the property, come and talk to me, and they all know that I'm not going to get mad at you for making a mistake, but I'm going to get mad at you for not letting me know. And it's
not learning from it.
Exactly. It's just kind of a culture of the property. There's a lot of stuff here, and there's a lot at stake, especially when you're dealing with, arguably the most valuable genetic IP in the industry. A lot that can go wrong. Hundreds and hundreds of strains that we're keeping alive, keeping backed up, restarting, getting in tissue culture, just all over the place. And doing it on a shoestring budget. We don't have a mega facility. I converted our basement into a nursery. It's 5,000 square feet, and we're able to do all that. You just have to have good people. That's the one. That's just the one constant you can't do without is having good people that you can rely on. So.
The company, man, it's a predictor of how successful a lot of these companies are going to be. And I would say cookies is no exception.
Yeah.
It's crazy, that's a fairly remote location. And so just the pool of people that you get to draw from, even though the talent's probably pretty high up in that region, just the pool is so much smaller. I mean, you're a little bit similar to us up here or me, I guess us was back in the days. There's just not nearly as many options. And so it's cool that you've found those options and then you've allowed them to build their careers on it, build their education and stuff. I have to be careful when I call Delbert because he's just so fun to talk to as a person that I'll talk to him for hours. Like I'll hit him up on the weekend on stuff. Raj, another great example of a good dude that they're just doing great work with you down there. And you are a great educator, right? And that kind of comes up as some of that Cookies University stuff. If you haven't heard of it, we've done a few episodes on that, and it's really cool that you're building the value by spreading knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. And just kind of going back to calling out managers, having guys like that on my team has made it so I can do all this stuff, and when I stepped away from managing the building, Delbert, for instance, having a guy like that on your staff, and that's what I tell any operators that I work with is like, it is so crucial, especially if you're, a lot of cannabis operations are in rural places. You can't get a contractor there to fix something right away. If something breaks, having a person on your staff who just knows how to fix things and doesn't just know how to fix things when they break, is going to go out and find the answers if they don't know it, and then also is going to maintain your equipment. One of the weird things that I really pride myself on this property. When I first got up to Humboldt, I would go on a farm and you would just see like, oh, there's a big, beautiful $150,000 generator just rusting, broken, that doesn't even run, and it's like, not one piece of equipment on this property doesn't work. Every single piece of equipment on this property is functional. And I feel like that is such a huge milestone to be at. And that's, like you said, having a guy on my staff who can do stuff like that it's worth its weight in gold. It really is.
It sounds like, you're driving for a lot of efficiency. You're taking care of your people, taking care of your equipment. And what that allows you to do is stay focused on taking care of the plants.
Absolutely.
Speaks to the mentality you guys have too. I mean, across the board, it sounds like, what you are promoting there is a company culture that takes accountability for problems when they occur. And even if they don't have the answers, they're willing to go out, find them, and put their own, blood, sweat, and tears into making those solutions a reality. And the only way you get people to sign on to do that is by being willing to do it yourself. So the culture you're building with those people and their ability and willingness to sign on to do that work alongside you says a lot about how you guys run that business. And I would imagine that efficiency and that attention to detail is probably something you guys see as a consistent quality, probably across all of your operations, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the climate that we like to both at One Log and at Cookies. That was always what I loved about being with Cookies from the very beginning of its conception. It was just such a cool climate of people that you could kind of rely on. You never really had to worry about whether the other person you're working on a project with was gonna pull their own weight. Everybody just had that mindset of go, 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 go. And that's how it's always been, running it as lean as you can, no waste. Just that kind of company culture is really kind of what drew me to this, honestly.
It would draw me there too. You guys might find a job application for me if you keep saying
I'll be your reference, Cian.
You can live in a tiny house.
Man, a few years after, I might have been looking.
Hey, we got the full suns in the ground, man. This is my favorite time of the year, just to go out there early morning when the sun's coming up and just work with the full sun plants, man. Seeing the plants in their natural environment in that Humboldt sun. I mean, there's nothing like it. There really isn't.
Out in the garden in the morning time in the outdoor sun is it's like a dream sort of a feeling that I feel like a lot of us, especially from the Prop 215 days, if you're ever cultivating outdoors in any respect, you have that memory of like waking up early in the morning and seeing sunlight coming through the, at the time, 8-foot tall trees that you had growing in the ground there. And just nothing like it. Absolutely nothing like it. And I think that's what a lot of us gravitated towards, is that feeling of like, I can do something like this. It makes me feel like this for a job.
Yeah. That's why I still do it. I mean, no matter what, I always find time for that specifically, and just to spend time with the plants, even if you don't have any tasks to do, just literally just standing in the middle of my plants is just one of my favorite things to do. And you catch so many things that you normally would have walked past too, when you just kind of do that and just kind of exist in your garden. I don't know, makes me still love this. That's why we do it.
And it's exactly the layout there. You've got obviously where you're living there, right by the property, and the sun rises actually just to the gardens between the sunrise and the place, and then you got the river to the other side of the house, and then you've got the grandfather tree up on the other end. It's just like, wow, that's a great setup. How many outdoor plants do you guys usually run there?
We have, I want to say 126 in our garden is our standard. The outdoor garden is 5,600 square feet, I want to say. So between the outdoor and the mixed light, it's only 10,000 square feet. It's not a huge garden, but it's very efficiently laid out, and it's been utilized. That's constitutes a pretty hefty chunk of the solventless product for California for cookies on that garden. So a lot of the strains we grow, and that's what's really cool about it now, is like being able to plan all this, and the fact that we're developing all the genetics here. The strains I'm working on now in the indoor are the stuff that's going to be on the menu in 3 years. And so we can really test everything and work with the products team at Cookies and the production planners, and really kind of figure out like what strain works best for each product line, or partner relationship or manufactured product or any of these different things. And we can plan that so far upstream now that it's like every single gram of weed that's grown on this property is utilized to its full potential, which feels really good. And it's also like, that's inspirational to the guys growing it. The worst thing in the world for your staff is to put in their blood, sweat, and tears and then have it turn to dust because we can't sell it. That sucks. We've all been there. So yeah, I mean the mixed light and outdoor grow at One Log has had such a special place. While I was trying to get all of the licenses through the nursery license expansion to get the indoor R&D going. We used to do the majority of our R&D and hunting in the greenhouse, just kind of section off a portion of the greenhouse to do it. So a lot of the new strains, a lot of the older strains, were all tested in that greenhouse. Obviously, Cookies is predominantly an indoor brand, and so needing to test all that stuff in an indoor environment was crucial. And then also just having something that we could control. Humboldt winters are cold, Humboldt summers are hot. So, not necessarily the best representation of what the genetics can do. It is one piece of the puzzle. I strongly believe you need to grow it in the greenhouse or in the outdoor just to see what the strain can do in that environment. And obviously, we run enough strains, a strong strain is a strong strain. Like if it grows well outdoors, it's going to grow well anywhere. And so I strongly believe it's a crucial part. But that greenhouse has been such the workhorse. Consistently providing mixed light flower for California for the last almost 7 years. So.
Yeah, and you guys, I don't know, one of the times I was down there, you were installing the hydronic heating. And then I think that the next time I dropped through, you were growing a strain for winter hash, right? I think you're calling it, what strain was that? It's just absolutely gorgeous. You guys are proud of it.
Oh, that was the purple sand.
Yeah.
So that was one of the ones that we got from Native Selection down in Santa Cruz, specific hash strains. Yeah, that's a big part of a lot of the stuff we're doing now is growing specifically for product lines. You know, and it's bizarre. I never totally believed it until I saw with my own eyes how some strains will dump at 5-6% for hash, and other strains will dump at 0.25%. Like it's insane. And it'll be a strain that produces amazing flower covered in crystals, but it won't drop any hash at all. It's really, it's just so, that's why R&D is just so crucial.
Myself over the years, I never really could put a finger on what was happening, but some of the things that I would send off, like if I would decide to fresh freeze a strain, and thought, this is just going to make the best press, best rosin. And I'd get it back and it'd be great, but it'd be like a quarter of what I expected to get out of it. I'm like, why did this do that when this other one over here that was nowhere near as frosty, like tripled or doubled the yield on what I'm getting back on the same volume of press? It's like some strains, man, just really are genetically predisposed to be a little bit heavier in that hash wash. And well, once you start getting an eye for it, that's where the fun begins, because then you get to start making all the fun selections and start kind of dialing in your process of which flavors that you're really trying to go after. And hash is becoming a lot more popular these days. A little bit less on the West Coast, but I mean, on the East Coast, you just hear it all the time. People are really into doing a lot more large hash washes these days. And so I think that's kind of an interesting side of things that, on the West Coast, you don't see as much exploration into, but it's getting to be a little bit more popular. And it's kind of funny to see that you guys are, well, just like you'd expect, almost a little ahead of a curve on that in the West Coast side of things.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely something that we're putting a lot of emphasis on these days. Just having just a huge diverse product line is kind of cookies. That's cookies thing. It's what we do. Hash is a tough one because it is very difficult, very, very thin margins. Then you add on top of that like this huge disparity between some strains that produce beautiful flower, produce no hash, and then other strains that don't necessarily produce the best flower, produce really good hash. You always want to find those kind of unicorns that can do everything. Those just kind of check every box on our production strain. That's what we're always looking for in R&D, and they exist, but they're pretty few and far between. We're really fortunate because we get to work with all the best in the business. Our main cookies main manufacturer for California is up here in Humboldt, Arcade X. Working with Lizandro is great. He and I can kind of plan everything out and check in. Then also, running the right nutrient line makes such a huge difference for hash production. We've in the last year, we used to run, some runs as organics and some runs as salts, but now we're just running all organics in both our greenhouse and our full sun, which I love because I way prefer smoking that flower. But you see, it's night and day how much more product, how much more of a yield you'll get out of it if you're running, an organic nutrient line. And certain organic nutrient lines are definitely better than others as well. So there's a lot to it, and I feel like we're learning more about it every day. Hash is it's a tough one because people want it so bad. It's like especially for solventless, the harvest is a huge pain in the ass. You can't really use any automation. It all has to be hand harvested because you're just anytime you're touching that to any piece of equipment, you're just damaging crystals. So you have to be as gentle as humanly possible. Keep it as in its full bud form. You don't want to compress it. You want to freeze it exactly as is, and that's how you get the best product out, the best color, the best yields. And so every year we're getting better at it for sure. But that's that just on top of just our entire product line of cookies is just that's our emphasis, and that's what we do here is just like finding ways, because it's not just for us, it's not just for California. We need to figure out a way that we can scale this and do it in other places. If it's really cool, but if we can only do it at one log, it's kind of useless. So trying to figure out, okay, how do we simplify this process, which is really complicated, and get somebody in some new market to be able to do the same thing and replicate this exact same product, so that you go in a freaking cookie store in Montana, you're going to get the same thing you got at a cookie store down in LA. So it's that's always what we're striving for. And so, I feel like every year we get closer and closer and closer to that. We start figuring out what works and what doesn't. So it's a cool thing to be kind of on the inside on.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It is very cool. Your strive to get that standardization has been kind of one of the reasons I think that we've talked so much is, all right, how do we utilize some of the data that you've logged and be able to share that within your organization in order to build that quality across the states?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the day that I started working with you I just always think of that as like the day, like the whole universe opened up to me, honestly. I don't know if you remember, when we first started talking, I was just kind of like, oh, I've been growing weed most of my life. I don't need a sensor to tell me what my plants want, and now I couldn't imagine growing any other way. And then, adding on top of that, being able to pull these runs and share them with our partners and be like, hey, this is exactly how this strain performs. If I'm running it in a 40-foot Connex container with 8-foot ceilings and LED lights, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to get at least these same numbers in your facility. So like here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing it. Just having all of these data points to be able to show people. Then on top of that, how many times have you and me just gone through graphs just trying to figure out what that common denominator was that made this one run so special, or that one thing, or why did this do this? I'm running hundreds and hundreds of strains. There's no way I could do that without sensors. It would be impossible. And then on top of that, you would miss so much stuff. Genetics, really is, just try to oversimplify it. It's fishing with a net, and it's like the bigger your net, the more fish you're going to catch, and the sensors kind of just give you that bigger net that you can, and also being able to eliminate redundant work early on, things that aren't going to do well, and really kind of see okay, I've heard you guys talk multiple times about how some strains you just can't stack EC with them. They just won't. You do everything right, you do everything by the book, and they just will not stack EC. And and it's like, okay, being able to identify those doesn't necessarily make them a bad strain. You just have to steer them specifically for that. They like a much more mellow environment. You can't push them as hard as you can other strains. And so it's like, okay, identify that and get them. I report to Burner. At the end of the day, he has probably the most refined palate of anybody I've ever seen in this industry. He can identify a terp profile that I wasn't even looking for in flower. And when he likes something, he likes it, and so predominantly we're getting a lot better at making sure that our menu is really solid from a production standpoint. But at the end of the day, some strains, all strains grow different, and they all require different kind of fine tuning. And so having access to all this data to be able to show people, hey, this is exactly what this strain liked. And if you grow it like this, then you're going to have a much, much better chance of success. So,
well, and that's, compared to most facilities, that's your number one prerogative there. Isn't just to necessarily grow the best weed and the most of it like a lot of places are doing. Yours is also, how do we create a repeatable process so that anybody can do this, that's going to, pick up a cookie strain and try to grow it? How are we going to be able to make this a repeatable, easy to understand process? And what are the markers that make that process work? And without the sensors, man, talk about just kind of shooting in the dark, hoping to hit something.
You got to have a Jonah at every facility to go in and touch the plants.
I mean, it's better than me. I mean, I would be screwed without my sensors. No, but I appreciate that, and it's so true. Yeah, and I mean, speaking of genetic markers, there are definitely a lot of companies that claim they can identify that, and I do think people are making a lot of progress on that, of being able to test plants and find those genetic markers from just leaf material and things like that. But we got a long ways to go, and it's just such a complicated strain. And the fact that like the industry is constantly evolving and the bar is getting raised, constantly getting raised. I mean, the last couple of years, the bar on genetics has gone up so much. Luckily that's happened.
You'd be seeing people like regularly pushing over 4 pounds per light fixture.
Am I seeing that? Oh, absolutely.
Oh no, yeah. I was thinking like, do you guys ever think that was something we would see? Like, 4 years ago, I remember being like, oh man, I just hit like 2.5 pounds light. I'm super excited. This was great. And then, thinking, how would that even work? This felt like the best I could have done possibly with this round. And then watching guys regularly right now hit, 4.2, 4.4 a light and doing it repeatably with high quality product. And it's like that. I just had no idea that the bar could even be raised that high. And now that we're here, it's a whole nother game, because not only do you have to meet that bar, but you have to teach how you can make it so that other people can meet that bar in ideally any type of growing circumstance. And that is a remarkable feat, my friend, because I mean, I'm sure we all know there's just out there that you can do wrong in any sort of facility. But if you treat genetics poorly because you didn't know what you were doing, it doesn't matter how nice your facility is, they're not going to respond. You know what I mean? So you being able to key in on those parts and pieces of the equation in the level of competition in the market that we have today is super impressive. And I would say, it's part of why the partnership has been so strong between you and Jason, because the data is absolutely crucial to that. Just like you were saying, you'd be lost without being able to have that type of instantaneous data readout across so many different strains and so many different, potential crosses that you're working with, and different growing styles and different operations that you're potentially preparing these things for. How else would you be able to keep track of so many things except to have, sensors in ground tracking it all the time that you can lean on for that, and then help push those things into, people's hands and say, hey, here is what you are looking to do with your volumetric water content, your EC, and your environment, all the way through from week 1, right when you transplant that thing, all the way through when you're getting ready to cut it down. And man, with the success you guys have had, I don't know how you would have achieved it otherwise, except having the ability to hand someone that roadmap with those genetics.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has not been a 100% success rate through it, but historical data has been such a game changer, just I feel like for the entire industry. I mean, it's why, the bar has been raised so much. There's so many good strains coming out. We're really starting to understand the plant from a much more scientific place. The sensors are they're such a valuable tool, and they don't make it more complicated. They make it so much simpler. Being able to just see it right there. And that's kind of what I always tell, the people that work for me, because a lot of growers up here kind of shy away from that kind of stuff just because they've been growing their whole lives a certain way and growing really good weed, but I was explaining to him like if you were building a house, would you not use power tools? Would you just like, sure, you could. Anybody who knows how to could build a house with just a hammer and a handsaw if you needed to, but why would you? That's what these are here for. They're not, but that doesn't take away the human factor. What it does is enhance the human factor. It's not taking the human interaction away from the plant. It's taking the human bias away from the plant, and that's kind of the main thing is like, okay, I don't want to guess why this plant is reacting this way. I want to know why it's reacting this way, and it's been a game changer for me. And we run a lot of your guys' sensors across the board in all of the different departments on site. And it's it's allowed, my staff to become so much more efficient at what we do.
That's awesome. And man, it's actually always been kind of easy to grow 4-pound plants. You just got to weigh the whole plant and some of the root ball.
Wet, 4 pounds wet. Yeah, I used to do that all the time in my indoor.
All day, every day. What are you talking about? Come on. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that's like really, it's important to hit on, that success isn't just stumbled into. You know what I mean? It's a long process of finding out what works, documenting it, making sure that you understand why it worked, and then being able to hand those notes off to someone so they can do that the same way. I also kind of wanted to ask a little bit of a different question. I know, you got such a diverse facility up there, and so many different parts and pieces to the puzzle that you guys are operating on a regular basis. And it seems like it was, a long journey of adding piece by piece to get there. What do you think your biggest stumbling blocks were when you were scaling this operation and, building it to what it is today?
It was probably unchecked optimism, I would say. We all just had such grand ideas. Everyone has best intentions going into everything. That's how it always is. What you often find, especially what you found early on in this industry, kind of, early rec or back in medical days is people were taking on a lot of different projects, and so you would spread yourself too thin and things would start slipping through the cracks. The day cookies came into the picture was the day that they kind of put me in charge of all of it up here. And they were just like, hey, just tell us what you need. We'll get you there. Everything at One Log funnels to you. I would funnel up to Parker. And so I think not having as many cooks in the kitchen, I feel like definitely was a game changer for this place. And just being able to just focus on just steady, I can't remember these, paraphrasing, road of progress, is a slow curve, but it curves, upwards. And that's always been, my mentality up here was just keep the ball moving up the field, one inch at a time. You just got to keep moving forward. Every day has to be some kind of improvement. Every day has to be getting us closer. And so being able to kind of do that was the big one. But I would say the early days is we were taking on too many things. We were just trying to throw too many different projects at the wall at the same time. And we needed to focus on the things that worked and that paid the bills, and i.e. Helped Cookies grow as a company. That was the main thing. A lot of the things we built early on up here at One Log specifically were, building a retail space in Humboldt County, kind of bringing sand to the beach, but it sounded like it was a great idea. The whole, kind of the whole winery model I still hear people talk about that up here, and it's great. It's beautiful. I love going to these beautiful picturesque farms up here with views of all the way out to the ocean. It's amazing, but at the same time, most cannabis consumers aren't going to take a 4-hour drive to go see a farm, and if they do, it's going to be a very small. It's not something you can create an entire business model around. It's so a lot of stuff like that we were just really optimistic about. Probably should have just said, hey, let's focus on just like real infrastructure and operations and the things that we know we can do well. So that would be the mistake, I think. Too much optimism.
It's funny how often though that is overlooked, and people so frequently get themselves into these what's the idiom that I'm looking for? It's like our eyes are bigger than our stomachs kind of a thing, right? Where we are so excited to get into something that it's easy to overlook just how much of commitment or how many resources that's going to take or how much energy we have to be able to offer those types of projects. And I think it's a pitfall people find so frequently, and not just in cannabis and in scaling, but, just in general and how they approach a lot of different situations in life. And I've seen lots of businesses fall prey to that mentality where they bite off way too much too quickly. And all of a sudden, once the bills really start rolling in, they're sitting there looking around like, oh, I miscalculated my cash flow potential, and this is not looking as comfortable as it once did. And so, as simple as it sounds, to just not let the unchecked optimism get the best of you, it's such a crucial and important piece of the pie.
Yeah. And it goes against human nature too. We all go into everything, like we all think we can do more in a 24-hour day than we actually can. That's a human thing. That's why we are who we are. That's how the human race has just continuously moved forward is wanting to see what's on the other side of that hill. But yeah, that it can be pretty detrimental in business, I feel like.
This conversation reminds me of a place down in Desert Hot Springs, just on the south end of Desert Hot Springs, called Coachella. And Coachella was going to be a cannabis amusement park. And they had it all planned out. I don't know, it was a huge lot, like 100-acre campus or something. And there's some greenhouses there today. Some indoor stuff, mixed light, that type of thing. Obviously, it's pretty hard to run like an actual greenhouse, natural ventilation greenhouse in Desert Hot Springs. But the funny thing there is they just had so many different, like, consumption lounge. Here's a processing museum, and like they had it all laid out. And I was like, oh man, I want to get in with all these licenses and see what we can do to get our product into there. And there just wasn't nearly the acceleration at development as I think everyone was expecting, especially the developers there would have preferred.
Yeah, I mean the one thing we all kind of failed to think of in the early days is that cannabis consumers just aren't like, we all thought it was going to become like the Napa wine industry. Cannabis consumers are, we love weed, but we also don't really travel to get it. And so we love sitting on our couch with our friends or in our backyard, chilling on a hammock, smoking a joint. It's generally more of like privacy of your own home kind of thing. Whereas, people who absolutely love wine will travel or go on a tour or go, do all these things. And I'm not saying cannabis people won't do that. Like there's always going to be that. It's just not as big of a thing as everyone thought it was going to be. And so many people had that idea, and it's a great idea. And I wish it would come around.
I'm waiting for cannabis deep sea fishing tours to take off, man.
Yeah. I'll have to pick your brain on that when you come. I have questions.
we get some really cool strain names that get going to target that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This one's called chili pepper rockfish. Here you go.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, there was so much of that in the early days. Everybody had a new idea. It was always, we all thought, when everything went legal that, every soccer mom in America was going to overnight become a pothead, and it just didn't happen. And it's kind of, some people like smoking weed and some people don't, and most people who do like smoking weed kind of like doing it, when you get off work and you just want to kick back and throw on a show or something, so it just didn't end up being this big social thing that everyone kind of thought it was going to be. I mean, consumption lounges are really cool. I love them. I mean, we tried to build one here. But that most people don't want to go smoke in a social setting. People want to go and smoke in the privacy of their own home. That's just what it comes down to. So just because it's a cool idea and it should be a thing doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to run with it, and that's kind of something we always have to constantly remind ourselves of, like, okay, just because I think it's cool, does that mean everyone else is going to think it's cool?
I mean, just a few minutes up the road from you, you got the Redwood Highway. That's a better place to consume than the one log.
Or any consumption lounge for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
we're in Humboldt County. I mean, it's just picturesque beauty everywhere. I mean, just pull off the side of the highway and sit on the side of the river and smoke a joint, and that's more appealing to most pot smokers than actually going to a place, you know, around other people that you don't know and smoking. You know,
I think there was also a little bit of this like optimism in the idea that like legalization was going to sweep the whole country and that was going to be this revolutionary thing. And what we sort of ended up seeing instead was the piecemeal, state by state, rolling it out as each one legalized. Rules were different state to state, county to county within states, and there wasn't a lot of cohesion about how those things happened. And then as states now are coming online, what we're seeing is rather than there being a new untapped market in this state, that market actually was probably being served already by somewhere else. And that as soon as we bump a new facility going on over in Massachusetts, one down in Carpinteria might die out. You never know. And that's kind of the other thing that is there was this like it was like the elephant in the room. No one wanted to talk about the fact that like there just aren't as many weed smokers as there are drinkers in the country. And that, you know, at a certain period of time, we started growing more weed than there were weed smokers in the country. And there wasn't a whole lot of talk about what we were going to do about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Again, we were all really optimistic, and looking back, probably stupidly optimistic. But there's, I mean, and you, especially now with just like you were talking about, I mean, you know, pretty mid-level growers. I mean, Jason could send you a recipe, and you'll be hitting 4 pounds of light on your first run. You know, I mean, that's where it's at now. You know, if you're not hitting a bar like that, you're a rarity. And so there's so much ability to supply the markets now that, you know, it's just not, it never turned into this giant thing. I mean, and it is, I mean, people love smoking weed, and people smoke weed everywhere. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, like we all optimistically thought that overnight everyone was going to be a pothead, and it just didn't happen. And it's not like alcohol. You know, people go out drinking and consume so much alcohol, whereas, you know, most people will just smoke a joint a night and be done. You know, except for the pretty, you know, avid smokers like myself. You know, but most people don't smoke as much as me all day every day. So. But they should.
Call to action for the listeners out there.
It's been an interesting road. You know, it has definitely been an interesting road.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, you know, that's kind of the fun of the industry that we work in these days. Not just necessarily the plants, although I think we all got into it for the plants, and we all still stay a lot of times for them. It's interesting getting to watch this industry evolve, whether that's here, whether that's you know, Germany or Australia or Brazil, and it's really fun helping people learn, which I would imagine both of you probably identify with in spades. I think it's probably one of the most fun parts about my job, when I've been able to, you know, have a nice conversation with somebody and they leave with this like light bulb moment where they're like, oh man, it's making sense now. I've got a grasp on what's going on. And like, what better feeling for me? And I think as we see the industry keep expanding, it might look different than what we were all originally hoping. Maybe less, you know, cannabis amusement parks, maybe no deep sea fishing tours. On the other hand, I think it's just so much fun getting to keep this industry expanding at whatever rate it is, and being able to be a part of, teaching people how this plant works and how they can, whether they are trying to cultivate it or whether they're, just trying to learn more about it. I love having conversations with people and educating them about it. And so, I don't know, I think that we've got a long road ahead of us doing just that, right? The industry may be kind of a little harder to move in right now in the US than it has been traditionally. However, I think that's not something we need to get too hung up on. I think the doors are open at this point, and unfortunately for anyone who might not want them to be that way, they are not closing. So we'll have a long road ahead of us, teaching many people, I'm sure, the gospel of crop steering and how to understand sensor data and build a cannabis empire just like you guys did. But I think you're right with the unchecked optimism comment there. I think that's something so easy to find yourself trapped in, and such a probably one of the most impactful things that you can find yourself in the midst of getting overextended. And man, I wish even earlier on, back in the 215 days, someone had really been like, hey, this other thing you're trying to do right now on top of this, maybe pump the brakes on that. Actually, let's not do maybe, pump the brakes on that. And let's just focus on the things that you are already excelling at, that you're doing well with, and keep building those parts of your business. And I look back on that and I'm like, man, that is the advice I would have given my younger self 100%, is don't get too overextended. Watch that tendency for the unchecked optimism, for everything to just work out and be fine, and plan pragmatically.
I think that the real irony of this right now is just how many different things that are going on at one log, and you're like, we had to curb our optimism, and now we're only doing these 6 different types of cultivation processes.
This is the simplified version of what you see now. And we were in the early days. We were trying it all at the same time, and that was just, But yeah, we thought we could pull it off, and I mean, we did pull it off in a roundabout way. It just wasn't the way we had planned on pulling it off. But we always knew that it was kind of an if you build it, they will come mentality, and we knew that. At least for me, I was, I came up here to build this, and I just kept pushing forward through it all, and knew that if I kept building it and kind of turned this into a really cool place and kind of pulled in really good people to be involved in it, and it would become something special regardless of what that final product ended up looking like. But yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, the product doesn't stop for anybody, and so it's like all the optimism aside, this industry just keeps on moving and keeps on evolving, and seeing a lot of these new markets come on, and then talking to people, who are operating in some of these new markets, and seeing that optimism again, and a lot of times we'll have to be the, hey, let's stick to do a couple things really well before we start, before you do it all. So, they're kind of, a lot of them are kind of lucky that they have the luxury of hindsight that we didn't have.
I think that's kind of the one of the nice things these days, like the markets in Europe that are starting to kick off a little bit, even though they're not quite the same like explosion that the United States opening was. In so many ways, that's a huge blessing to those markets. They're starting from the same ground zero that we all did, but the level of knowledge available to them and the level of information that they can access, either just themselves or through tools like what's available through AROYA or through other systems like. Fantastic! Yeah, Jason's got not a hard time remembering competitors' names. But
those good.
Yeah. Anyway, the idea is, though, like those technologies, right? the available the stumbling blocks we all hit.
Yeah.
That's all there as information in our mind, in our collective experiences, to be able to share and help those people not find their way into the same pitfalls, and, you know, to help guide people in ways that we didn't get that guidance when we had the doors blown wide open and we're just going for it as fast and hard as we could.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, we have so many tools we never had back then. I mean, Jason's seen like how I run my runs now. You know, whether I'm doing whether it's a pollen reversal, a breeding project, a pheno hunt, an R&D run, a small batch run, organics, salts, whatever, you know, we do it all. I literally build my templates ahead of time. You know, like I'll have, and not just like a stacking, bulking, you know, ripening template, but like week by week, exactly where, you know, day by day, where I want my levels to be the entire run for every single thing. And then I just essentially press play on it, and stay between the lines, and you're growing good weeds is pretty much what it comes down to. I mean, it's an oversimplification for sure, but that's the tools we have now that we didn't have back then. So it's, you know, I'm envious sometimes when I talk to people who are just kind of getting their big break in the industry, or like they're getting into their first real facility and things like that. And I'm just like, oh man, like I just to see all this kind of as a new thing is just really cool. And also with all the stuff we have now, and with all the hindsight and knowledge we have now, you know, it's cool. I'm excited to see what comes next too.
I'm certainly excited. I can't wait till someone just totally shocks me and says, I just grew 6 pounds of light.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've seen it. I mean, we have some, you know, our partners, you know, our partners in New Mexico, they're hitting 6 pounds of light on some of the new strains, on some of the strains that I bred, and out of here, I'm just like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, whoever would have thought that was possible? I mean, you think about that, what that is per square. I mean, what is that, like 100 grams a square foot or something? That's
good number. I mean, that's
how much it would take to get 100 grams in a freaking square foot of canopy is insane. Without double stacks, that's
yep.
I mean, it just keeps going up and up and up. I mean, that's the limit. Yeah.
Can't wait to see where we are the next time we all get to chat. Well,
yeah.
Or we end up cruising on for another hour, because I feel like we could probably just keep chatting about genetics. I mean, I would chew your ear for literally the rest of the whole day about all the different fun strains that you get to play with and what you've got libraried up there. But in the interest of keeping it wrapped up and on time here, I think we'll draw her into a close for the day. Jonah, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a blast. It's a great time talking to you, and I can't wait to get up and come take a look at the Cookies One Log University, that I've heard so many awesome things about it, between everything Jason's told me and all the wonderful things Seth's said over the years. That, and please come again. I think it'd be awesome to check in with you and kind of see where things have evolved again next year or two, and, you know, have the check-in. Where are we at now? 8 pounds, 9 pounds of light?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down anytime. I was so honored when Jason asked me if I would do this. Honestly, I'm a huge fan. I watch you guys all the time. You have always used you guys as kind of a true north star for information. You know, just you have such a huge pool of historical data to pull from and examples. And I love working with Jason, because he's just a straight down the line pragmatic, just, you know, I like to consider myself same personality type of, you know, let's stick to the facts. Let's keep, you know, hyperbole and assumption out of this, you know? And so, super big fan of what you guys do. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. And we'll get much more into the weeds and the nerd stuff when you come visit. You'll get to see everything we're working on here. So, and
that's always my favorite part. So twist my arm.
You know, you're always welcome too. So anytime.
Awesome. Well, everybody, this has been episode 140 of AROYA Office Hours. Jonah, thank you so much for coming on. Again, like I said, hope we have you out again sometime soon. Hope I get to come stop by in a couple of weeks when I'm up in Humboldt. Everyone watching today, if you guys want to learn a little bit more about our AROYA system so that you can have the type of control of your crops that Jonah here does, jump on, shoot us an email at sales@aroya.io. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. If you love the podcast like Jonah here does, shoot us a little bit of love on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening in today. And don't forget to give us a little rating in there. It helps us get found on the pages. Well, thanks, Gromies, and we'll see you again on episode 141.